The air in the Galactic Confederation Council chamber felt thick with tension. Ambassador Greg Miller stood tall despite the growing discomfort of being the only human in a room filled with 17 different alien species. His plain black suit looked strangely simple next to the elaborate robes and biological displays of the other representatives. "The Earth delegation will now be recognized," announced the chamber's automated translation system. The voice echoed through the massive dome-shaped room. Greg took a deep breath and stepped forward. The floating platform beneath his feet hummed as it carried him to the center of the chamber. Thousands of eyes, some with multiple pupils, others glowing with bioluminescence, turned to watch him. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Confederation," Greg began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "Humanity is honored to stand among the stars at last." Whispers rippled through the chamber. On the highest tier, the Zontari delegation stirred. Their tall, gray forms and elongated heads leaned together in hushed conversation. High Chancellor Kraz, identifiable by his ornate metallic collar, stared down at Greg with 6 blinking eyes. "We are a young species," Greg continued, "but eager to learn and contribute to galactic peace and prosperity." "How quaint," came a voice from the Draxian section. Laughter followed. Greg maintained his composure. He had been warned about this, the dismissive attitude toward newcomers. Earth had only achieved faster-than-light travel 15 years ago, making humans babies in the cosmic community. From her command chair on the U.S. Defender in orbit around the Confederation capital planet, Navy Captain Lisa Daniels watched the proceedings via secure transmission. She frowned as she observed the aliens' reactions. "They're not taking us seriously," she said to her executive officer. "Would you in their position?" he replied. "According to our intelligence, some of these species have been spacefaring for thousands of years." Lisa shook her head. "I don't like it. There's something else going on here." Back in the chamber, High Chancellor Kraz raised a long 6-fingered hand. The room fell silent immediately. "The Confederation welcomes Earth," Kraz said, his translated voice unnaturally smooth. "As a developing world, you will benefit greatly from our protection and guidance. We have prepared a standard integration treaty that has served many emerging species well." A holographic document appeared before Greg. The text scrolled rapidly, thousands of pages of dense diplomatic language. "We recommend immediate ratification," Kraz continued. "For your protection, of course. Unaffiliated worlds often face unfortunate challenges." Greg noticed how several representatives from the lower tiers shifted uncomfortably at these words. A small purple-skinned delegate actually flinched. "Earth appreciates the Confederation's concern," Greg replied carefully. "However, we will need time to properly review all treaty provisions." Kraz's middle eyes narrowed slightly. "Of course, though I must stress that delays can be problematic. The galaxy is filled with dangers for unprotected worlds." "We understand," Greg said, maintaining his diplomatic smile. "Nevertheless, we will require the standard review period of 1 planetary cycle." The chamber filled with murmurs again. Greg spotted several approving nods from mid-tier species, but the Zontari delegation seemed displeased. As Greg's platform returned to the Earth section, he noticed a small alien with feathered ridges along its neck watching him intently. When their eyes met, the creature gave an almost imperceptible nod before turning away. Later, as Greg returned to the Earth Embassy compound, his communication device buzzed. It was Captain Lisa from the Defender. "How did it go?" she asked. "They're pushing hard for us to sign immediately," Greg replied, keeping his voice low despite the secure connection. "The treaty is enormous, and they're clearly not expecting us to actually read it." "That matches the pattern we've seen with other newcomers," Lisa said. "They all signed quickly, and within decades their resource exports quadrupled while their own development stagnated." Greg looked out the window at the glittering spires of the Confederation capital. "They think we're just another primitive species they can add to their collection." "Should we inform Earth about our suspicions?" Lisa asked. "Not yet," Greg replied. For now, we play along. But we read every single line of that treaty, and we prepare for the possibility that the Galactic Confederation isn't the peaceful alliance of worlds they claim to be. Kelly Rodriguez squinted at her screen in the dimly lit analysis room of Earth's embassy. For the past 36 hours, she had barely moved from her chair, studying the massive Confederation treaty line by line. Empty coffee cups surrounded her workstation. "Find anything yet?" Dr. Alan Fraser asked as he entered the room. The xenolinguistics expert looked as tired as Kelly felt. "Too much," Kelly replied, rubbing her eyes. "Look at section 879, paragraph 12. Alan leaned over her shoulder. The holographic text glowed blue in the darkness. "Earth agrees to prioritize resource allocation as determined by Confederation need assessment teams," Alan read aloud. He frowned. "That sounds like they can take whatever they want," Kelly finished. "And there's more. The translation they provided uses the word temporary for these arrangements, but in the original Zonteri legal language, the term they use is much closer to indefinite, or even permanent." Alan sat down heavily. "So they're lying in the translation itself." "It gets worse," said a new voice. Science Officer Ben Collins walked in, carrying his own datapad. His normally neat appearance had given way to rumpled clothes and messy hair. "I've been analyzing the economic data from the last 6 species to join the Confederation. Every single one followed the same pattern." He projected a chart into the air. Colorful lines showed the rise and fall of various economic indicators. First year after joining, massive influx of new technology. Everyone celebrates. Second year, Confederation advisors arrive to help implement new systems. Third year, resource extraction begins for mutual benefit. By year 10, the new member worlds are exporting 80% of their raw materials while becoming completely dependent on Confederation imports. Kelly let out a low whistle. "It's colonization disguised as alliance." "And we nearly walked right into it," Alan said quietly. The door slid open again, and Ambassador Greg Miller entered. He looked from face to face, taking in their grim expressions. "I'm guessing you found what I suspected was there," he said. Kelly nodded. The treaty would turn Earth into nothing but a resource farm within a decade. They've hidden it well, but the intent is clear. Greg sighed. "The Confederation has requested a progress update on our treaty review. Chancellor Kraz was particularly interested in when we might be ready to sign." "We need more time," Ben said. "There are thousands of pages to analyze, and each one seems to hide a new trap." Greg's communication device buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. "It's Captain Lisa. The Defender has detected increased activity around the Confederation fleet. They're running battle drills suspiciously close to our position." "A show of force?" Alan asked. "Probably," Greg replied. "They want us nervous and eager to gain their protection." Kelly stood up. "We can't sign this treaty, but we also can't afford to make enemies of the entire Confederation. We need leverage or allies, or both." Ben looked thoughtful. "During my research, I noticed something interesting. Not all Confederation members seem to benefit equally from these arrangements. The founding species, like the Zonteri, hold most of the power. But some of the mid-tier species show signs of reluctance in certain dealings." "Potential allies?" Greg asked. "Possibly," Ben replied. "But we'd need to approach them carefully. If the Zonteri suspect we're trying to create division, they'd come down on us hard." Greg finished. "We need more information about the power dynamics at play, and we need to buy time." "I have an idea about that," Kelly said. "The treaty allows for cultural exchange missions as part of the review process. We could request visits to several Confederation worlds, officially to learn about our potential new allies, but actually to gather intelligence and possibly find friends," Alan added, catching on. Greg nodded slowly. "It's risky, but it might work. Lysa can coordinate secure communications from the Defender." He looked at each of them in turn. "If we're going to do this, we all need to understand the stakes. We're not just negotiating a treaty anymore. We're fighting for Earth's future." The room fell silent as the weight of their situation sank in. Outside the embassy windows, the alien city glittered, beautiful and threatening all at once. Admiral Paul Washington stood before the large view screen in his secure command center beneath the Pentagon. His stern face showed no emotion as he studied the classified transmissions from the U.S. Defender. "Captain Lisa, your report is concerning," he said. "How certain are we about these findings?" Lisa's image flickered slightly due to the encrypted channel. "The evidence is solid, sir. The Confederation is not what it appears to be. Ambassador Miller and his team have found multiple hidden clauses in the treaty that would effectively turn Earth into a resource colony." The Admiral nodded. "Then we need to act. I'm authorizing Operation Silent Observer." "Understood, sir. I'll notify Lieutenant Bennett and Specialist Clark right away." 3 days later, Lieutenant John Bennett and Communications Specialist Susan Clark arrived on Nivara, a small blue-green world that had joined the Confederation 20 years earlier. They wore civilian clothes and carried credentials identifying them as cultural researchers. Their real mission was far more sensitive. "Remember, we're just curious scholars interested in Nivari culture and how they've benefited from Confederation membership," Susan whispered as they approached the designated meeting point. John nodded. "And our recording devices, active but undetectable to standard Confederation scans." They entered a small establishment that resembled an Earth cafe, though the furniture was designed for beings with different proportions. In the back corner sat a slender, blue-skinned Nivari with delicate facial ridges. This was Ambassador Trin, their contact. "Welcome to Nivara," Trin said quietly as they sat down. "We don't get many human visitors. Your request for a cultural discussion was interesting." Susan smiled. "We appreciate you meeting with us. Earth is considering Confederation membership, and we wanted to hear about your experiences." Trin's large eyes darted around the room before settling back on the humans. "The official response is that Nivara has prospered greatly under Confederation guidance." "And the unofficial response?" John asked. Trin's voice dropped even lower. "Follow me." "Not here." They walked through winding streets to a small garden enclosed by tall plants. Trin checked a small device that swept for surveillance before speaking. 20 years ago, Nivara was a proud, independent world. We had just developed faster-than-light travel. The Confederation welcomed us with promises of prosperity and protection. Trin's shoulders slumped. "We now export 94% of our mineral resources. Our manufacturing sector is gone. We depend on Confederation imports for basic needs." "Couldn't you refuse?" Susan asked. Trin made a sound like bitter laughter. "The treaty we signed gave them everything. When our previous government protested, there was a security incident. Our president and cabinet died in an explosion. The Confederation offered peacekeeping forces to help maintain order." John and Susan exchanged alarmed glances. "Are all newer members treated this way?" John asked. "Most," Trin said. "The pattern repeats across the sectors. The Zonteri and other founding species control everything. They find developing worlds, pressure them into unfavorable treaties, then slowly drain them of resources and independence. Are there others who feel as you do?" Susan asked carefully. Trin hesitated. "Yes. A network of concerned representatives. We must be careful. The Confederation's intelligence services are everywhere." As if on cue, a sleek silver vehicle glided past the garden entrance. Trin stiffened. "Zonteri Security Patrol. They don't usually come to this district." "Are we in danger?" John asked. "Perhaps. They've been watching your embassy more closely since Ambassador Miller requested extended treaty review time. It's not a common response from new species. Usually, worlds are eager to join." "We should go," Susan said. Trin nodded but pressed a small data chip into John's hand. "Names, contacts, people you can trust. Tell your ambassador that he is not alone in his concerns." Back on their shuttle, Heading to the orbital station, John and Susan reviewed their recording. "This is worse than we thought," John said. "They're not just exploitative. They're willing to eliminate opposition." Susan nodded grimly. "We need to contact the Admiral and Captain Lisa immediately. And we should check in with the other teams, if they've discovered similar situations on other worlds. Then Earth needs to prepare for the possibility that refusing Confederation membership could lead to conflict," John finished. The shuttle docked with their transport ship. As they boarded, neither noticed the small blinking device attached beneath their vehicle, transmitting their movements to a Zonteri monitoring station several light years away. Defense Secretary Maria Howard walked through the underground facility known only as Site Echo. Few people on Earth knew of its existence. Here, 50 meters below the Arizona desert, humanity's greatest technological secrets were kept. "How are the prototypes coming along?" she asked Chief Engineer Frank Taylor. Frank gestured toward a massive hangar where technicians worked on what appeared to be advanced spacecraft components. "Better than expected. The reverse-engineered propulsion system is 30% more efficient than anything the Confederation thinks we have. And the shield technology has been successfully integrated with our existing defense systems." Maria nodded with satisfaction. "The Confederation believes our ships are barely capable of interstellar travel. They have no idea what we've been developing." "It's still not enough to win an all-out war," Frank cautioned. "We don't need to win a war. We just need enough strength to make them think twice about forcing us into anything." Her communication device chimed. "Secretary Howard," she answered. "Ma'am, this is Dr. Grant. I need you to come to the biology lab immediately. I found something unusual." Minutes later, Maria stood beside Dr. Olivia Grant, staring at complex genetic displays floating in the air. "What am I looking at, Doctor?" Olivia pointed to a series of highlighted sequences. "These are comparative genetic adaptability markers from various species. The blue ones are human. The others belong to different Confederation species. And this means humans have an unusually high genetic adaptability rate, nearly 3 times faster than the galactic average. We can adjust to new environments, radiation, and even gravity changes much more quickly than most species." Maria frowned. "Is that why the Confederation is so interested in us?" "It's certainly one reason," Olivia confirmed. "We found references in their scientific database to biological resource acquisition. I think they view human adaptability as something they could potentially harvest or replicate." Maria felt a chill. "You mean they want our genetic material?" "Exactly. And based on the research Lieutenant Bennett and Specialist Clark brought back from Nevada, they've done similar things to other species with unique biological traits." Maria's device chimed again. This time, it was Admiral Washington. "Maria, we have a situation. The Zonteri have increased their fleet activity near the Confederation capital. Captain Lisa reports that 3 battle groups have moved into positions that could cut off Earth's delegation from returning home." "They're getting nervous about our delay tactics," Maria said. "Agreed. Ambassador Miller needs to know what we've discovered, but communications might be compromised. We need to send someone in person." Back at the Confederation capital, Ambassador Greg Miller maintained a pleasant expression as he walked the grand halls with High Chancellor Kraz. Inside, his stomach churned with tension. "Earth's extended treaty review is most unusual, Ambassador," Kraz said. His multiple eyes blinked in sequence. "Most species are eager to receive our protection. Humans are naturally thorough," Greg replied smoothly. "It's one of our cultural traits to examine agreements carefully before committing." "Admirable," Kraz said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "However, we've noticed unusual activity from your vessels. Cultural exchange missions to multiple worlds simultaneously seems excessive." Greg kept his face neutral despite the alarm bells ringing in his mind. They were monitoring Earth's ships. "Cultural understanding is very important to my people," he said. "Of course." Kraz stopped walking. "Tell me, Ambassador, have you spoken with representatives from Nevada recently?" The question was too specific to be random. Greg felt a cold certainty that John and Susan's mission had been compromised. "I don't believe so," he lied. "There are so many species to meet." "Indeed." Kraz's voice took on a harder edge. "The Confederation values transparency, Ambassador. Secrets can lead to misunderstandings." Before Greg could respond, his aide hurried over. "Ambassador, urgent message from the Defender. Captain Lizzo requests your immediate presence." "Duty calls," Greg said to Kraz with a diplomatic smile. "If you'll excuse me." As he walked away, he could feel the Zontari's eyes boring into his back. Aboard the Defender, Captain Lizzo showed Greg the sensor readings. 3 Zontari battle groups, positioned to intercept any direct route to Earth. They're not even trying to hide it. "They know we're stalling," Greg said grimly. "There's more," Lisa said. "We just received a secure transmission from Earth. Dr. Grant has discovered why they're so interested in humans, and Admiral Washington wants you to know, if things go badly, we're not as defenseless as the Confederation believes." The private meeting room in the lower levels of the Earth Embassy was secured against all known forms of surveillance. Ambassador Greg Miller sat at the head of a small table, looking at 5 alien representatives who had arrived separately and discreetly over the past hour. "Thank you all for coming," Greg said quietly. "I understand the risk you're taking." The Navari Ambassador Trin nodded. "The Zontari have eyes everywhere. If they discover this meeting, they would label it as sedition," said Jorex, a reptilian Drakari whose scales shifted color with his emotions. "But we can no longer remain silent while more worlds fall into their trap." Greg looked around the table. Besides Trin and Jorex, there was Vila, a crystalline Lumari whose body sparkled under the room's lights, Mox, a small furry Pelin with 6 arms, and Zara, a gaseous Aetherian contained within a transparent environmental suit. "Each of you represents a species that has suffered under Confederation rule," Greg said. "Earth is determined not to share that fate." "What do you propose?" Vela asked, her voice musical. "The Zontari control the largest fleet in known space." "They control it, but they don't entirely own it," Greg replied. "Many ships are crewed by your people, are they not?" A moment of silence fell as the implications sank in. "You're suggesting rebellion," Mox whispered, all 3 sets of hands fidgeting nervously. "I'm suggesting alliance," Greg corrected. "A new kind of relationship between worlds, based on actual cooperation rather than exploitation." Back on Earth, data analyst William Peterson worked through the night, sifting through the mountain of information collected from various Confederation worlds. His office at Global Intelligence Headquarters was cluttered with empty food containers and holographic displays. "That can't be right," he muttered, staring at a new pattern emerging from his analysis. He ran the calculation again, then a 3rd time. The result remained unchanged. He reached for his secure communication device. "This is Peterson. I need to speak with Admiral Washington immediately. Priority Alpha." 20 minutes later, the Admiral's face appeared on his screen. "This better be important, Peterson." "Sir, I found evidence that the Confederation has been actively sabotaging developing civilizations. They don't just wait for new species to achieve space travel. They deliberately interfere to ensure technological development follows paths that will make these worlds vulnerable to exploitation." The Admiral's expression hardened. "Explain." Peterson displayed his findings. Archaeological data from 12 worlds shows a similar pattern. When these civilizations reached a certain technological threshold, they experienced sudden setbacks, wars, resource shortages, even manufactured diseases. These weren't natural occurrences. They were engineered to weaken these societies just as they were on the cusp of major breakthroughs, including Earth. Peterson nodded grimly. "The analysis suggests at least 3 major historical conflicts in the last century had Confederation influence behind them." The Admiral was silent for a long moment. "This changes everything. The Confederation isn't just an exploitative system. It's actively predatory." He straightened his shoulders. Transmit everything to the Defender immediately. Ambassador Miller needs this information. Back at the Confederation capital, High Chancellor Kraz stood in the Zonteri High Command Center, surrounded by displays showing fleet movements. The human delay tactics have gone on long enough, he said to his officers. Their vessels continue to visit member worlds, asking dangerous questions. Our agents report potential seditious meetings. What are your orders, Chancellor? Asked his second-in-command. Move the 4th and 5th battle groups to positions surrounding the human homeworld. Inform Ambassador Miller that the Confederation Council has voted to accelerate Earth's membership process for their own protection. They will sign the treaty within 48 standard hours, or we will implement a protective occupation. And if they resist? Kraz's multiple eyes narrowed. Earth's primitive defenses would be overwhelmed in days. But I don't anticipate resistance. No species has ever dared to refuse Confederation membership. In the Earth Embassy, Greg's meeting with the 5 alien representatives was interrupted by an urgent message from Captain Lisa. Ambassador, we've just detected major Confederation fleet movements. 2 battle groups are heading toward Earth, and William Peterson has sent critical information you need to see immediately. Greg looked at the worried faces around the table. It seems our timeline has been accelerated. He stood up. The Zonteri are making their move. Now we must make ours. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Confederation buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from all 17 member species filled the tiered seating. At the center podium stood High Chancellor Kraz, his tall gray form commanding attention as his multiple eyes surveyed the crowd. Honored representatives, Kraz began, his voice amplified throughout the chamber. Today we welcome Earth to our family of worlds. For their protection and prosperity, the Council has voted to accelerate their membership process. Ambassador Greg Miller sat stiffly in the Earth delegation's assigned area. Captain Lisa stood behind him, along with Kelly Rodriguez and Dr. Alan Fraser. Their faces remained carefully neutral despite the tension. Ambassador Miller, Kraz continued, please approach the signing platform. Greg rose slowly and walked to the center of the hall. A holographic display showed the treaty, thousands of pages condensed into a single signature page. The Confederation has graciously offered Earth its protection, Kraz announced. You have 48 hours to sign this treaty. Should you delay further, we will be forced to implement protective measures to ensure Earth's safety from potential outside threats. The implied threat hung in the air. Everyone in the hall understood what protective measures meant. Greg could feel hundreds of eyes watching him. High Chancellor, Greg said, his voice calm despite his racing heart. Before I respond to your generous offer, I request permission to address the Assembly. Kraz's middle eyes narrowed slightly. This was not part of the usual protocol. After a moment's hesitation, he nodded. Proceed. Greg turned to face the gathered representatives. Esteemed members of the Galactic Confederation, Earth is honored by your attention. However, before signing any agreement, I believe transparency is essential for true cooperation. He activated a small device in his pocket. Immediately, multiple holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber, showing data, images, and reports. These are findings from our analysis of the treaty and our investigations of Confederation practices, Greg continued. They reveal a pattern of systematic exploitation of newer member worlds. Gasps and murmurs spread through the hall. Kraz stepped forward. This is inappropriate. Is it inappropriate to reveal that 90% of resources from newer member worlds flow directly to the founding species? Greg asked, his voice rising. Is it inappropriate to show evidence that the Confederation has deliberately interfered with developing civilizations, engineering conflicts and setbacks to make them more vulnerable to exploitation? The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives began shouting questions and demands. Greg used the confusion to activate the second phase of his presentation. Now the displays showed testimonies from representatives of exploited worlds, including the 5 who had met with him secretly. These are not isolated incidents, Greg declared over the growing commotion. This is a deliberate system designed to create the appearance of cooperation while enabling colonial extraction. Kraz slammed his hand on the podium. Silence. This human spreads lies and discord. Security, remove the Earth delegation at once. Uniformed Zontari guards moved toward Greg, but suddenly representatives from 7 different species stood up from their seats. We confirm the humans' claims, shouted Trin of Nivara, his voice cutting through the noise. Our world has been stripped of resources and autonomy. The Drakari worlds as well, added Jorex, his scales now bright red with emotion. More voices joined the chorus of dissent. The Zontari guards hesitated, unsure how to proceed with so many representatives now standing in opposition. Greg raised his hand, somehow commanding silence despite the chaos. The purpose of this revelation is not to destroy the Confederation, but to reform it. Earth proposes a new type of galactic cooperation, one based on genuine mutual benefit rather than exploitation. He turned to face Kraz directly. As for your 48-hour ultimatum, I must inform you that Earth rejects the current treaty terms. We will not sign an agreement that reduces our world to a resource colony. Kraz's face darkened with rage. Then you leave us no choice but to implement protective measures immediately. Our battle groups are already positioned around your homeworld. Greg smiled for the first time. I wouldn't recommend that action, Chancellor. Admiral Washington has been quite busy while we've been talking. Perhaps you should check with your fleet commanders. As if on cue, Kraz's communication device chimed with an urgent message. As he read it, his multiple eyes widened in shock. High Chancellor Kraz stared at his communication device in disbelief. The message was clear. Earth was not the defenseless world the Confederation had assumed. Somehow, human ships had positioned themselves around the Zontari battle groups. Even more shocking, over 30 Confederation vessels crewed by species from exploited worlds had changed their allegiance, disabling their Zontari commanders. Greg watched Kraz's reaction with satisfaction. The plan had worked. Something wrong, Chancellor? Greg asked, his voice carrying throughout the now silent chamber. Kraz recovered quickly, his rage evident as his gray skin darkened. This is unprecedented. You have corrupted Confederation forces and committed an act of war. No, Greg replied calmly. We've simply formed alliances with others who share our concerns about Confederation practices. The crews of those ships made their own choices when presented with the evidence. Greg turned to address the full assembly again. Earth does not seek war. We seek reform. But we will not be colonized or exploited, and it seems we are not alone in this position. With deliberate slowness, Greg stepped away from the signing platform. The symbolic gesture was clear to everyone watching. Earth rejects the current treaty, he announced. We withdraw from negotiations until the Confederation is prepared to offer truly equal terms. Complete silence fell over the chamber. No species had ever walked away from Confederation membership. The concept was unthinkable. Greg nodded to his team. As one, the Earth delegation stood and began walking toward the chamber's exit. Their footsteps echoed in the stunned silence. Then something unexpected happened. Trin, the Nivari ambassador, stood up from his seat and walked down to join the Earth delegation. After a moment's hesitation, Jorex the Drakari followed. Then Vela of the Lumari, Mox of the Pelans, and Zara in her Aetherian environmental suit. More representatives began to rise. Those from worlds that had suffered similar exploitation. Soon, nearly 20 representatives from 7 different species were walking alongside the humans. From her position behind Greg, Captain Liza leaned forward and whispered, "This wasn't part of the plan." "No," Greg whispered back, "it's better." As they reached the massive doors of the assembly hall, Greg paused and turned one last time to face the Confederation. The image was powerful. Humans standing shoulder to shoulder with representatives of multiple alien species, united in their defiance. The Galactic Confederation was founded on principles of mutual aid and cooperation. Greg said, his voice firm. Somewhere along the way, Those principles were corrupted. Today, we offer you a choice. Continue down your current path of exploitation, or join us in building something better. With those words, he turned and walked through the doors. The other representatives followed. Behind them, the assembly hall erupted in chaos. Aboard the U.S. Defender, Admiral Washington watched the sensor displays with intense concentration. The standoff in space mirrored the political confrontation below. Human ships, reinforced with previously hidden technology, faced off against Zantari battlegroups. "Status report," he demanded. 34 Confederation vessels have powered down weapons and announced their support for the Earth Coalition, his tactical officer reported. "The Zantari are furious but holding position. They still outnumber us, but the tactical situation is complicated for them." "And our special package?" "Deployed and functional, sir. If the Zantari attack, their command communications will fail." Washington nodded with grim satisfaction. Earth had been preparing defenses for years, ever since their first deep space probes had detected alien transmissions. They had hoped first contact would be peaceful, but they had planned for the worst. His communication officer turned suddenly. "Admiral, we're receiving a priority message from Ambassador Miller." Miller's face appeared on the main screen. Behind him stood representatives from multiple alien species. "Admiral," Miller said, his voice filled with unexpected emotion, "I'd like to introduce you to the founding members of what we're calling the Interstellar Cooperative. It seems walking away from a bad deal has earned us some friends." Washington raised an eyebrow. "That's quite a delegation, Ambassador. Are they all on board with this new cooperative?" "Completely. And their home worlds are waiting for word." Greg's expression grew serious. "The Zantari will not take this lying down. We need to prepare for possible conflict while we establish this new alliance." "Understood. I'll inform Earth's leadership immediately." Washington paused. "You've made history today, Greg." "We all have," Greg replied, looking at the diverse group of aliens standing with him. "The galaxy will never be the same." 6 months had passed since the day humanity walked away from the Confederation table. Earth's orbital space station, once a modest facility, had been expanded into an impressive diplomatic hub. Ships from dozens of worlds docked there regularly, their diverse designs reflecting the variety of species now openly discussing new forms of cooperation. Greg Miller stood at the observation window of the newly constructed Cooperative Council chamber. Below him, Earth's blue oceans and swirling clouds presented a view that still captivated visiting aliens. "Admiring the view again, Secretary General?" asked Trin, now the official Navari representative to the Interstellar Cooperative. Greg smiled. His new title still felt strange after years as merely ambassador. "It helps me remember what we're fighting for," he replied. "Fighting, but not with weapons," Trin noted. "That makes all the difference." The aftermath of Earth's walkout had been tense, but not the all-out war many had feared. The Confederation had fractured almost immediately. Nearly half its members had withdrawn to join the new cooperative, leaving the Zantari-led remnant significantly weakened. A chime sounded, indicating the council session would begin soon. Greg and Trin walked together into the chamber where representatives from 23 species now gathered regularly. Some, like the Navari and Drakari, had been founding members alongside Earth. Others had joined in the months since, attracted by the cooperative's principles of genuine equality and mutual benefit. As Greg took his position at the central podium, he caught sight of Captain Lisa, now Admiral Daniels, sitting with Earth's military delegation. Her promotion had been one of his first official recommendations. "The Council is now in session," Greg announced. "Our first item concerns the ongoing situation with the Zantari Confederation." A holographic display activated, showing the current political map of known space. Blue indicated cooperative members, red showed the remaining Confederation worlds, and yellow marked neutral or independent systems. "As you can see, the diplomatic situation has stabilized," Greg continued. "The Zantari continue their Cold War stance, but they've respected our borders for the past 3 months. Only because they have no choice, said Jorex, his scales shifting to a thoughtful green color. Their economy is struggling without the resource worlds they once exploited. Which brings us to today's main proposal, Greg said, the Rehabilitation Initiative for Former Confederation Worlds. Kelly Rodriguez stood to present the details. Her work analyzing the Confederation Treaty had earned her a permanent position in the Cooperative's Economic Development Division. Many worlds have been left with damaged ecosystems and depleted resources, she explained. This initiative would provide technology, expertise, and support to help these planets recover. Even those still aligned with the Zonteri, asked a representative from a newly joined world. Especially those worlds, Greg confirmed. Our quarrel is not with ordinary people suffering under Zonteri rule. By offering help without exploitation, we show the galaxy a better way forward. The discussion continued, with representatives offering suggestions and refinements. Unlike the old Confederation, where founding species simply dictated terms, the cooperative operated on genuine consensus. After the session concluded, Greg met privately with Admiral Daniels and Dr. Alan Fraser, who now headed Earth's Cinecultural Exchange Program. The latest intelligence reports suggest 3 more Confederation worlds are considering defection to our side. Lisa reported, the Zonteri are losing their grip. And cultural exchanges are flourishing, Alan added. The number of interspecies scientific collaborations has tripled in the last quarter alone. Greg nodded, feeling a deep satisfaction. Not bad for a primitive species that was supposed to just sign on the dotted line and hand over our resources. Lisa smiled. High Chancellor Kraz severely underestimated human stubbornness. Not just stubbornness, Greg corrected. He underestimated our capacity to build genuine connections. The Zonteri saw other species as resources to be exploited. We saw potential allies. He turned back to the window, where Earth rotated slowly below. Beyond it, the first ships built jointly by humans and their new allies patrolled the system. 6 months ago, the galactic community watched in fear as humanity walked away from the table, Greg said quietly. They expected conflict, maybe even war. Instead, we built a new table, one with room for everyone to sit as equals. Alan nodded. And that made all the difference. The work is far from over, Lisa reminded them. The Zonteri won't accept the new reality easily. No, Greg agreed. But for the first time, I truly believe the future of the galaxy might be bright after all. He looked at his friends and colleagues. And that's worth walking away from any table.